to the defense of Nigeria's territorial integrity and maintenance of internal security.
I'm one of the pioneer pilots that was recruited into the Nigerian Air Force way back in 1962.
I was part of the pioneer people who came into Kaduna in 63 to start the Air Force.
Like every organization, the Nigerian Air Force had had its fair share of challenges in its 54 years of existence. Now 54, the Nigerian Air Force has become a formidable force, contributing immensely to nation building as the third arm of the Nigerian military. It has no doubt been fulfilling its assigned statutory responsibilities over the past 54 years through its participation in various campaigns and air operations both within Nigeria and beyond the shores of this country. We now look at some events that have shaped the Nigerian Air Force as it rapidly evolved from a small transport unit to a force that is now reckoned with in the projection of air power in Africa. At the formative stage of the Nigerian Air Force, much of the initial efforts were focused on developing its airlift capability in order to transport Nigerian contingents to United Nations peacekeeping operations. In those days, the Nigerian Air Force only operated from its premier base, the Nigerian Air Force Base, Kaduna. When the Nigerian Civil War broke out in July 1967, the Nigerian Air Force had on its inventory only the Piaggio 149D trainer aircraft, not Atlas and Donia 2728 transport aircraft. It was very much at its infancy with no combat aircraft and was therefore least prepared for the Civil War.
We were thrown into the war without any platforms that we would use to prosecute any war.
The Air Force was on the ground, but very, very scanty. As I said, they haven't got aircraft to fight the war. So we, those of us, myself, Yusuf and Kola, had an audience with the then head of state, General Gowon, and said, "Sir, we want to be involved in this warfare." He said, "How?" He said, "We want to take over the DC-3s of the Nigerian Airways and use them, no matter how crudely, to support our own military formations." And he gave us the go-ahead.
This infant force was undertaking airdrop missions using the DC-3 aircraft taken over from the Nigerian Airways to provide own troops with logistic resupply and also evacuating wounded troops from the front line. As crude as the employment of air power was then, there were critical moments when the Nigerian Air Force saved the day during the Civil War.
Even before the war finished, they got some jets and they were able to fire before the ground forces moved in. Remember, they did a lot of bombing in Enugu. Even before we captured Enugu, we were around the top hill there, waiting for the Air Force to do all the bombing and then scatter the Biafrans, they run away before we move in.
The advent of the Civil War set a new challenge that shaped the Nigerian Air Force. This led to the acquisition of combat aircraft to prosecute the war.
As the war proceeded, I believe by 68, our air power improved further when we started acquiring the MiG-17s and MiG-15s and MiG-17s.
I came in about 9 years after the end of the Civil War in 1979. But it's very clear that from what we have read, it's very clear that the Air Force played a very crucial role in supporting the surface forces to ensure that the Nigerian Civil War was brought to an end that is favorable to Nigeria or to the federal side. The Air Force participated in so many of the operations there, played the role of close air support, logistic resupply, movement of forces, and so on and so forth. So actually, even though the Air Force was in its formative stage, embryonic stage, it was still able to add a lot of value to the efforts that was put together by the country to ensure the unity of Nigeria.
After the Civil War, the Nigerian Air Force was restructured into 3 field commands and headquartered Nigerian Air Force with 4 staff branches. The Tactical and Training Commands were the first to be established in 1978, while Logistics Command was later established in 1981. Each command consists of groups, wings, and squadrons, which replaced the initial formations.
The Air Force really organized itself and had fighter aircraft, air defense aircraft, transport, and helicopters. So we built on that. And when I took over in 1980, I improved on that. Then we got, during my time, we got the 3rd command. You know, we had only training command and the strike command before. During my time, then I introduced the logistics command, so the 3rd leg.
More platforms were acquired to enhance operational capability of the Nigerian Air Force, and efforts were made to domesticate training and build capacity for self-reliance. This period ushered in the establishment of a number of Nigerian Air Force training institutions across the country. Another major event that would test the might of the service was the religious crisis of Metsasini sect barely a decade after the Civil War. Unlike the Nigerian Civil War, the Nigerian Air Force this time was better equipped to support the efforts of the Nigerian Army and police.
When the Metsasini crisis started, I was a cadet, but we were all familiar with the role that the Nigerian Air Force played in Kano. The fighter aircraft were scrambled, I think the MiG-21s then, to fly overhead the area and create the desired effect and send the right message to the Metsasini guys.
And I can also tell you that we did a good job, even though it was a flying training group. Luckily, we had the MiG-21s there, as well as L-39. I was flying the MiG-21 then. So we deployed the MiG-21s as well as the L-39 in support of 3rd Brigade.
Another event that brought the Nigerian Air Force out to show its air power was a series of violent incursions into Nigeria by Chadian forces and armed rebels along the Nigerian border with Chad Republic in April 1983. The Nigerian Army, supported by the Nigerian Air Force, succeeded in pushing the Chadian forces out of Nigerian territory.
We moved from Makurdi to Maiduguri, a forward operation base now. Maiduguri became our forward operating base to support the army in that operation. We actually did well because we were able to, within a very short time, maximum of 2 months, push back the insurgents into our territory.
The involvement of the Air Force that time came in to assist us in the logistics support, for the operation, and the combat, aircraft that came using their mixed jets and other things, and assisted in combating, those things that happened. And in fact, without the help of the Air Force that time, things would have escalated beyond our control.
The ECOMOG operations in Liberia and Sierra Leone is another major event that shaped the evolution of the Nigerian Air Force.
The Liberia mission was initially supposed to be a peacekeeping mission, but when we got there, there was no peace to keep. So we had to enforce that peace.
That was how the deployment, not of C-130 alone now on Super Puma, that was when the Alpha jets were deployed from Kainji to go and support ECOMOG forces.
As an aircraft maintenance engineer type-rated on the Alpha Jet aircraft, I led the engineering team on that mission. I had another young officer with me. I was also a young officer, then a flight lieutenant, and we had about 40 technicians. It was a relatively big responsibility, but God enabled me to live up to the task. When we're deploying, we ensured that we deployed with all the ground support equipment that we required. We also left with all the spares that we knew were always commonly used. And we had quite also a number of manuals which we knew we had to rely upon.
I remember when we did about 2-3 days after we landed in Sierra Leone, we now set up a recce over Liberia to see the operation area or area of operation. And over the Liberian International Airport, as we were flying over the airfield, I saw traces of fire coming from the ground. That was the first time I saw firing. I saw bullets passing just by my side, by the aircraft. We were the lead aircraft. I was flying with Oga Okoye at that time. And so I told him, sir, they are firing. And we quickly climbed up and returned to our base in Sierra Leone. So that was a surprise and also an indication that we were there for real business.
The Nigerian Air Force had its many successes during the air operations and equally encountered challenges.
When we settled into the real operations, we discovered that we did not have adequate platforms. The platform we had, which was the Alpha Jet, supported by Super Puma helicopters and Do-228 light lasing aircraft, they performed what they could, but the Alpha Jet particularly was tasked beyond its capabilities.
Another challenge as far as the aircraft platform was concerned was lack of night capability. We became predictable to the enemy that will only fly in daytime. So we came up with innovations and we started flying the Alpha Jet in attack mode at night.
These challenges will later pave the way for major transformations that impacted on the operational capability of the Nigerian Air Force and its ability to combat emerging security challenges at home and abroad. Following the experiences of the ECOMOG air operations, the Nigerian Air Force realized the need to acquire more aircraft to increase its bite. Accordingly, in the year 2000, the Nigerian Air Force acquired the Mi-35P helicopter gunship and the Mi-24V variant, while the F-7NI fighters were acquired in 2009 as fighter interceptors and to complement the Alpha Jet aircraft in fighter ground attack role. Similarly, in 2010, the Augusta 109 light utility helicopter was inducted into the Nigerian Air Force Infantry, in addition to the ATR-42 maritime patrol aircraft for maritime patrol. The new acquisition, particularly of the MI series helicopters, proved to be quite useful as the Nigerian Air Force operated in the oil-rich Niger Delta area of the country to support the surface forces in securing the nation's assets in that region. The Special Operations Group of the Nigerian Air Force in Port Harcourt, under the leadership of the then Air Commodore Sadiq Abubakar, now the Chief of the Air Staff, proved quite resourceful in curbing militancy and oil theft in the Niger Delta.
Major General Sarkin Yaki, Bello Sarkin Yaki was the task force commander. And we regularly have meetings in Port Harcourt where each component of the Joint Task Force was given the overall plan of the commander and all that was required for us to see how we utilize our assets to fit into that plan. And we played a very, very crucial role in terms of patrolling oil and gas facilities in the South-South and making sure that we are aware of what is happening around, what we call domain awareness. And not only that, of course, we participated in a number of operations.
I remember very vividly one of the operations in which we attacked Camp 5, which was a stronghold of militants at that time. We went with 3-ship formation, and we said we were one ship. We gave the November Gulf Romeo call sign as against the Skyhawk call sign they know for because they were monitoring the radio. And by the time we appeared at the Korokoko, it was too late for them. That was the heavy blow on the militants that forced them vividly to the negotiating table and the resultant amnesty that we witnessed moving forward.
And apart from that, I think there was a time also we had a situation where there was threats to one of the oil terminals right in the Atlantic. And the Nigerian Air Force played a very crucial role in sending the Mi-35 gunship, even though we didn't have the flotation system. But we were able to go right into the ocean, and our presence there actually deterred the militants who were not expecting that we would come after them, and that saved that facility. I flew a number of missions with our pilots there, and I made sure that I was always there also to understand what is going on. So I think the most exciting for me is for me to see that after the strike on the Boni camp, the guys were immediately called to surrender. And that means at least, and you know, the moment they surrendered, we realized that they were also holding some white guys, you know, expatriates from oil companies that they had kidnapped. And we brought these guys. Some of these guys were actually working even without shoes. They had very dirty water in their bottles, water bottles, and we brought them to the base. And they went to the medical center, they were checked, after which we brought them to the mess, provided hot meals for them. These were people that were living inside the jungle. So it was very exciting for me as a commander and as somebody that has participated to see that we have ensured the freedom of individuals that ordinarily had no hope of getting out of the jungle.
The Boko Haram insurgency is one unfortunate event that has ironically enhanced the operational status of the Nigerian Air Force in recent years.
I had airmen who were of different trades and 2 helicopters at that time. The whole atmosphere was that of vulnerability because situational awareness was what we couldn't really have. We depended on information or intelligence, human intelligence, which most of the time was not accurate. This situation persisted until the base was attacked in December of 2013. I think that was when it dawned on the service that there's a need to provide more than what we had on the ground at that time, that the assets were vulnerable.
It gave rise to restructuring and expansion of the force structure to position it for more effective employment of air power in support of the surface forces in the fight against insurgency, especially in the northeast.
And since that time, there were changes, a few changes here and there, especially in the passive air defense or passive defensive measures. 3 years ago, with the advent of the incumbent chief of the air staff, other initiatives, including more ISR platforms, and then introduction of the regiment, people who were dedicated, who knew what to do when an attack was supposed to or is imminent. And this has also developed into the base defense BDCC, where there are cameras and then there are other systems that will help to detect attack and allow for swift and quick response.
The various air operations conducted in the counter-insurgency operations have no doubt been instrumental to the degradation of the ability of Boko Haram terrorists to freely operate in Nigeria.
Yes, I took over command of 103 Strike Group and as the Air Component Commander of Operation Lafia Dole in January 2015. And the first thing I got to do is to boost the morale of the men to prepare them for the task ahead. Of course, as at that time, when I took over, the Boko Haram had captured most of our territories, and we needed to strategize on ways of recovering those territories. One of the strategies we devised was to maximize the use of our ISR platforms, most especially the ATR-42. The ATR-42 we decided to use as command post. We invited the GOC 7 Div and his artillery commander to be on board the ATR-42 while advancing to capture most of those territories. And some of the territories we captured include Bama, Banki, Poka, Goza, and even Bita.
We have done, since 2015, we have done a lot in terms of supporting, not only through air operations, but even our special forces, some of whom are today embedded with the Army and the Navy Special Forces in Zambiza area. That's an area that probably most people don't even know. But apart from that, the air operations, of course, we have done a lot in terms of providing close air support to the land forces. We have done a lot in terms of providing logistic resupply. There are so many sectors. These sectors have to be supplied with ammunition, with water, with food, with medicine. And of course, the medical evacuation equally has played a very important role, as well as casualty evacuation.
The contemporary threats to national security in today's Nigeria range from ethno-religious crises, kidnapping, armed robbery, cattle rustling, armed banditry, pipeline vandalism, farmer and header clashes. The Nigerian Air Force is currently deployed across the different geopolitical zones to support the military operation and interventions in the troubled areas. The above challenge has led the service to embark on the training of special forces to address emerging threats.
You recall that insurgency, especially the threat of Boko Haram, started in 2010 thereabout. And the regiment personnel then has been involved in protecting our bases and in limited operations with the army. But from 2015, when we trained the special forces in Belarus, they were the first set to fight, to join the Armed Forces Special Forces to fight in the northeast, and they credited themselves very well. In 2017, they were rotated with the special forces we trained in Pakistan. So those who were trained in Pakistan are the one in the northeast right now fighting with the army.
The Nigerian Air Force has in recent times also projected air power beyond the shores of the country. A notable example is the deployment of the Nigerian Air Force fighter jets to the Gambia and the airlifting of Nigerian Army troops to the same country in 2017 to ensure the restoration of democracy in partial fulfillment of the federal government's foreign policy initiative. Likewise, when a natural disaster occurred in Sierra Leone in 2017, the Nigerian Air Force was on hand to employ its C-130 Hercules aircraft to airlift tons of humanitarian relief materials donated by the federal government of Nigeria to the victims of the disaster. Obviously, the Nigerian Air Force has over the years proven its worth in the collective efforts of the Nigerian military to meet the nation's security imperatives.
I remember one retired senior officer was telling me that during the war they used to carry bombs in the cabin of the aircraft. and when they are overhead, they will just roll the bombs out. But you know, an Air Force that was doing that in the 60s, today we have a service where young officers are several miles away from the battlefield, guiding unmanned aerial vehicle to drop their bombs and even missiles on selected targets. So if you compare what was there in the 60s to what we are today having, the difference is very clear. And apart from the UAV as well, you have very young officers today that are fighting, flying the fighter aircraft, the F-7 and the Alpha jets. You have people that are also flying subsonic aircraft such as the L-39 in Kano. And in addition to that, we didn't have the helicopter gunships during the Civil War. But today we are operating one of the most sophisticated helicopter gunships in the world. The Mi-35M is playing a very, very crucial role in what we are doing, not only in the Northeast, but in different parts of the country.
As the Nigerian Air Force marches ahead at 54, it is worthy to highlight some of the immense developments witnessed by the service in the past 3 years of the current federal government administration. It now has 10 staff branches at the headquarters, 6 field commands, more direct reporting units, and newly created quick response groups and quick response wings to bring security closer to the people.
From the time we came to now, we've been able to establish 2 commands, the Special Operations Command and the Ground Training Command. Special Operations Command is located in Bauchi, and the Ground Training Command is located in Enugu. In addition to that, we have created the medical branch, medical services branch. It used to be a directorate, but today it's a full branch because of the kind of activities that were and the expansion that the service has recorded. In addition to that, of course, we have the new Communication and Information Services branch, which was carved out of the former logistic branch. So I think by expanding, we are now more effective, because you have, like, the logistic branch used to have so many directorates under them, and it was very cumbersome and difficult for one single branch chief to be able to handle this situation. So now that we have unbundled the logistic branch into Communication and Information Services branch and then the logistic branch, I think the entire, in terms of providing and dealing with the issues that concern these branches, they are more effective now.
The aircraft infantry of the Nigerian Air Force has received a boost with the acquisition of new and more modern aircraft such as Diamond, King Air 350I Beechcraft, Super Mushak, Mi-35M helicopter, Bell helicopter, in addition to the reactivation of hitherto grounded aircraft.
Since the inception of the current administration under the leadership of Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, there has been increase in the number of platforms on the NAF inventory. Starting with the ab initio primary trainer, we have just procured 10 Super Mushak aircraft from Pakistan. 5 of them were delivered last year, and another 5 was delivered about 2 months ago. There are also arrangements in place to procure combat helicopters for the Nigerian Air Force. By this, I am talking about procurement of 10 Mi-35M combat helicopters. They are arriving in batches of 2. The first batch of 2 helicopters was delivered last year. There are other platforms that have come into NAV inventory given to the Air Force. One of them is the Bell 412 helicopter, which was given to the Nigerian Air Force by the federal government. We have successfully reactivated these 2 platforms, and they are currently deployed for operations in the Northeast. That is talking about Operation Lafia Dole. There are ongoing projects to reactivate some of our grounded fleets. In this regard, let me talk specifically about the life extension program on the Mi-35P helicopter with the efforts of our own engineers and technicians. The work that is being done on that aircraft, by the end of the project, the aircraft will be almost like a new aircraft that is just coming into the service. So we are doing that with the Mi-35P helicopter. We are doing same thing with the EC-135 helicopters, as well as the Dolphin helicopter.
As a way of reinforcing a culture of self-reliance, the Nigerian Air Force has intensified efforts in the area of research and development, partnering with Nigerian tertiary institutions and local companies in the process, with attendant positive effect on aircraft serviceability and operational effectiveness. The climax of the research and development efforts of the Nigerian Air Force is a recent induction into the service of the first indigenous operational unmanned aerial vehicle named Tsegomi.
In the last 2 years, for example, under the current leadership, going to 2.5 years, the Nigerian Air Force has been able to secure patent rights for 2 R&D breakthroughs. The first one is what I have here, the hydraulic diaphragm of the Mi helicopter. As small as this is, before we were able to produce it through indigenous research and development, the Air Force bought one piece for about $17,000. But this we now produce at about $100. So you can look at the price differential and be able to determine whether R&D is necessary or not. We don't have to produce the entire plane, but if we can produce parts that, that require frequent changing, we'll be saving the country a lot of money. Other recent breakthrough that we've made is in the production of the heat shield cones for the Alpha Jet rocket launchers. Each of the heat shield cones we buy at about $1,500, and we expend about 40 every week in the theater of operations in the Northeast. So if, for example, we produce just 2,000, you are talking in the region of over ₦1 billion. But through indigenous research and development, we are now producing about 2,000 for less than 20 million naira. So you look at it, $1 billion and 20 million. The difference is humongous. So that is what R&D can do. And then there are so many other breakthroughs we've recently recorded, like in the area of the production, the repairs of the multifunction display of the Augusta 109 helicopter. That singular display panel, to get another one will cost us about $100,000. But we've been able to repair one for, in fact, for virtually nothing. So these are the kind of things that research and development can do. It will save cost, it will improve the capacity of our research personnel, who are mostly engineers, and it will also reduce the time that we need to get our aircraft back in the air in case of any minor problems with it.
As part of its corporate social responsibility and strategy to win the hearts and minds of the locals in conflict areas, the Nigerian Air Force has in recent times invested heavily in a number of humanitarian intervention schemes, including but not limited to medical outreach programs across the country.
Over this period, you'll find that the Nigerian Air Force Medical Service actually is one of those branches that have spearheaded the Nigerian Air Force humanitarian activities through provision of free medical service to various civilian communities in the country. And virtually all parts of the country, we have conducted a series of medical outreaches. As at present, right now, in fact, our team is in Ran, which is part of both humanitarian and part of the support for the ongoing military operation in the Northeast. We have a team of doctors, including specialist surgeons and even obstetrics and gynecologists deployed to run. As you are aware now, recently when there was an episode in Run, all the civil agencies pulled out of, especially those providing medical services, they pulled out of Run. So the Chief of Air Staff gave a directive to the medical service: you must organize a team and send to Run to fill in the gap created by the civilian agency. And that's why now we have a team dispatched to Run to provide consultation and treatment for, and then surgeries to be conducted. Those that can be conducted in Run will be conducted. Those with major surgeries that require full support of a hospital will be flown to Maiduguri, and then they will be operated in our theater. So if you see, over these last 3 years, well, we have provided various services to over 300,000 civilians, and most especially in the Northeast. And added to that, you know that the Nigerian Air Force Medical Services had maintained 2 hospitals within the conflict area, one in Bama and one in Dalori, where we have a permanent presence of our personnel providing care to IDPs who have been living in these camps.
Being mindful of the primacy of the human being as an enabler and multiplier of other resources, the Nigerian Air Force has also focused on massive infrastructural development aimed at improving and sustaining the morale of personnel and their families.
When this administration came in 2015, the accommodation sufficiency, what I mean by that, the personnel that could be considered to be adequately accommodated was 45%. But at 2018, we have attained about 66% accommodation sufficiency, with only about 3% of our personnel who are on lodging allowance, because they are not given any form of tied-down married accommodation. This shows a corresponding increase of about 21% from 2015 to date. Other aspects of welfare include the provision of sporting facilities like gyms. For between 2015 to date, we've been able to construct 7 new gyms which are fully equipped to ensure physical fitness and recreation for our personnel. In addition to that, we have also rehabilitated 3 old gyms that are in a very dilapidated state and equipped them with state-of-the-art gym equipment. On education, we have recorded giant strides in terms of education as part of our responsibility to ensure our personnel and their wards are adequately educated while they are at the front, so that nothing will disturb them from discharging their responsibilities. In this regard, we have built new schools. For instance, in Abuja, we have been able to establish a brand new comprehensive school, a boarding comprehensive school for girls. In Shasha, we have constructed a day secondary school. If you know Lagos very well, hitherto, the children of our personnel had to go to Ikeja, where our secondary school is. And you know the traffic situation in Lagos, so the chief deemed it fit, and he has established and equipped a new day secondary school. Aside from that, virtually all our schools have seen either some kind of rehabilitation, particularly you go to Air Force Military School, JOS. Both the hostels, the recreational area, the classrooms, the admin area have all been rehabilitated. New classroom furniture and e-learning materials have been provided. Ibadan, Air Force Comprehensive School, Ibadan, due to its location, which is about 15 to 25 minutes drive from Ibadan, had no electricity. I think over a year ago, we have commissioned a hybrid solar power. So as I speak to you, that school enjoys electricity. Kaduna Air Force School used to be a day school. Now it's been converted into a boarding school to ensure the kids are kept within a confined environment and so that they have the best environment to study. Aside from that, it's part of our corporate social responsibility to our host community. And if you check the performance of our school vis-a-vis private schools, they can be rated pari passu.
The Nigerian Air Force embarked on capacity building of the personnel as key to putting man and machine to effective use towards the attainment of its statutory responsibilities. This first key driver of the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Baba Abubakar, was well thought out, as it is the major boost to the recent successes recorded in the operational effectiveness of the service.
Our belief is that you cannot give what you don't have. It is a very simple statement, but it's very loaded as well. Yeah, no matter how much you desire to do something, if you don't have the knowledge to do that thing, and you don't have the skills to do that, certainly you'll not be able to succeed. It's just like carrying a pilot and taking him and giving him a stethoscope in the hospital and say, okay, these are your patients, go ahead and deal with them. You are going to end up with disaster because the man is not trained to deal with these problems. So similarly, in the Air Force, we believe that the most important resource in any society is the human being. And that human being can only be useful if he is properly trained, if he has the required skills, he has the required attitude, and he's taken care of. And that is what is guiding whatever we are doing. And that is why the issue of welfare of personnel is paramount in what we are doing. We must make sure that if we are entrusting a young man with a multi-million-dollar aircraft to go and fly and make our communities secure, then we must make sure that that young man has a place to sleep. His family, has a place to call their home in the base, comfortable, so that after I had this work, he can retire back and say, yes, I have worked to make Nigeria safe, and I have a place to at least sleep. Similarly, if he has children, we must provide for their schools, the best of schools. We should not allow our people to start going to private schools. Where is he going to get the money to pay for private school? But the service that is tasking him to go and do this job should provide not only accommodation for him and his family, but should provide a good school for his children, so that once he's in the Northeast flying, he knows the home front is in order. Not that he will be in the Northeast and then the child does not have a good school to go. Similarly, the medical facilities, and that's why in our medical we have upgraded most of our hospitals. And similarly, we have created reference hospital in Bauchi, like I said, and in Port Harcourt, and we are working to ensure one in Enugu as well. So human capacity development is very, very essential, is very crucial, is very central to what we are doing if we want to succeed.
Looking back at the events that shaped the Nigerian Air Force over the 54 years, from a transport unit to a formidable air power, the nation and her citizens can only be proud of the officers, airmen and women who have held sway in keeping the dream alive.
The level of improvements in the air police specialty in the last 3 years has been really amazing, with the establishment of the K9 wing, with the reconstruction of the crime lab at the Provost Investigation Group in Lagos. We also have the reconstruction and refurnishing of the Air Police School in Kaduna to meet international best standards.
For me, as a person, it has impacted so much positively on me. I've been trained as an aircraft engineer up to the master's degrees level. And in the past 3 to 4 years, the service has witnessed a lot of developments in terms of manpower and infrastructural developments.
For me in particularly, at least I go home with the joy of, yes, having a comfortable place to live in. That's for one, in terms of accommodation. At the end of the day, when I'm talking about the education part of it, my children go to school knowing fully well that, yes, they have a conducive place to study in. In another aspect, if we were to talk about the monetary aspect, yes, it has really alleviated my spending by helping me to pay part of my school fees for my kids.
The Nigerian Air Force has evolved over the past 54 years to become one of the most potent forces on the African continent. And several things have indeed changed in the Nigerian Air Force. There were no dedicated intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft that could possibly coordinate airstrikes and also have records of battle damage assessment. But today, we have dedicated intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft in the inventory of the Nigerian Air Force that are actively involved in all our air operations, and that has made our air operations to be much more effective and even more efficient than they were in the past. Beyond the area of operations, looking at aircraft maintenance, in the past, the Nigerian Air Force relied virtually on foreign vendors and foreign firms for all its aircraft maintenance activities, especially the major maintenance activities. But today, we have an increasing ability to conduct some of these maintenance activities on our own, to the point that major aircraft maintenance activities, such as the periodic depot maintenance of some aircraft, are now being conducted in Nigeria here. For example, as we speak, a C-130 Hercules aircraft is undergoing periodic depot maintenance right here in Nigeria, and this was something that in the way past wouldn't have been possible. Beyond the area of aircraft maintenance, we also have a situation where our base defense system is now a much more mobile system, a much more effective system. In the past, the base defense system was largely static. We relied totally on the Nigerian Army detachment for our base protection. But today, with the introduction of the specially trained regiment personnel known as the Special Forces, we are able to better protect our bases, and it's what's been described as bridging the gap between force projection and force protection. Talking about accommodation, in the past, accommodation was a very big challenge for both officers and airmen and airwomen. But what's been done in the past 2-3 years is an increasing construction of residential accommodation over all our bases, such that much more than ever before, our personnel are better accommodated.
Clearly, the modest achievements of the Nigerian Air Force as it marches ahead could not have been accomplished without the adequate support of the federal government and the commitment of the Nigerian Air Force officers, airmen, airwomen, and the civilian staff.
In terms of support from the federal government, I will say that it has been unprecedented. We have gained substantially from the support of the federal government in terms of increasing the number of platforms that are available to us in the Nigerian Air Force. And I will support this statement by giving you figures. We, with the support of the federal government, the Air Force has inducted 10 Super Mushak trainer aircraft, which are currently in Kaduna flying and adding value to ab initio training. Prior to that time, we didn't have enough aircraft for the ab initio training, and most times we've been sending our pilots out of the country to do their flying training. For the first time in many, many years, about 28 years or thereabout, we've been able to train cadets who have completed their ab initio flying training last year. For the first time in about 28 years. This is the first time we are seeing cadets graduating from the 401 flying training school. Most times you find officers get commissioned and sometimes even get promoted a number of times while they are still doing their ab initio training. But for the first time, because of the number of aircraft that we now have available, in 4 months they were able to conduct the ab initio training, 18 pilots. We are expecting 2 attack helicopters from Italy, the Agusta 109 Power. And we have also made provisions for another 2 in 2018 budget. So if you put that together, you are talking of 18 brand new aircrafts in less than 3 years. And of course, apart from that, ongoing discussions are on to acquire the Super Tucano aircraft from the United States of America. And you are talking of 12 multi-role Super Tucano A-29 aircraft. This is, like I said, unprecedented in terms of acquisition. The last time we had this kind of acquisition and support, from the federal government was in the 80s. Apart from the acquisition of these brand new ones, we are also lucky to have reactivated 12 aircraft that were hitherto not flying. So if you add all this, if you have 12, you have 18, you are talking of 30 platforms. And I believe that by the time we acquire all this, the Super Tucanos, I believe, will change. They are multi-role. They can be used for ISR. They can be used for offensive operations. So actually, you find that it's one aircraft, but playing so many other roles. We on our own have gone ahead to start training. And that is why we've been training and retraining. We have winged about 84 pilots already. And some other pilots are in different parts of the world, some in Nigeria. And I believe that ultimately this will add a lot of value to what we are doing in terms of making sure that Nigeria is secured and our people are able to go around or go about their businesses without any hindrance. So on this note, I will want to first and foremost thank the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces for giving us these assets, for approving the assets, for approving our budgetary proposals. I want to also thank the members of the National Assembly who have appropriated the resources for us to be able to acquire these platforms that are currently in Nigeria. In addition to that, of course, we want to thank the Honorable Minister of Defense, the Permanent Secretary Minister of Defense, the Director, the Honorable Minister of Finance, the Governor of the Central Bank have also, and of course the Accountant General of the Federation, have played a very crucial role in ensuring that these aircraft are acquired and people are able to get this the service able to get this aircraft. And then finally, and most importantly also, the pilots, the technicians, the airmen, airwomen that are working round the clock in a very harsh environment to ensure that our society and our communities are secured. We want to thank them most sincerely as well. Thank you.
As the Nigerian Air Force celebrates its 54th anniversary, there is no doubt that it is marching ahead in a positive trajectory.